Tonight on The Wrap, Vote 2026. Millions go to the polls in England, Scotland and Wales in the biggest test of public opinion since the general election. Polls have just closed. Now the counting is set to begin in elections which could see a seismic change in UK politics. It is set to be a tense night for all the party leaders in England, with the two main parties expected to lose hundreds of seats in the council elections. Labour are predicted to suffer big losses in England, Scotland and Wales. So can Sir Keir Starmer survive as Prime Minister? We'll be live at two of the most significant counts and get the assessment of our political editor, Beth Rigby. Also tonight, the race to contain the spread of Hantavirus, with 5 confirmed cases and at least 6 people in hospital. Well, with me to discuss those stories, The Guardian's deputy political editor, Jessica Elgott, and The Sun's political editor, Jack Elsom, and Beth, of course. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including the arrest of a man after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was confronted near his home in Sandringham. Well, a very good evening to you, Jack, Beth, Jessica. Welcome to all of you as well. So, the breaking news tonight then, the polls have just closed in elections in England, Scotland and Wales, with counting about to get underway in some of the English council elections. So, Jack, Beth, Jessica, one sentence each then. Oh, Beth, we're going to hear from you in a moment, I hear. A big test for all parties, for traditional two-party politics and indeed, of course, Jessica, for the Prime Minister.
6 months now, I feel like we've been saying that this May elections is going to be the real test for Keir Starmer. It's going to be the moment that decides his future. We're finally here, and let's see if it does.
Jack.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, local elections are always a vehicle for voters to give governments a bloody nose, but I'm not sure we've ever had a Prime Minister approach them from such an enfeebled position. OK, well, this could be a big, big night ahead as far as the English council elections are concerned, with 46 of the 136 English councils declaring overnight. The results in the Scottish and Welsh elections should come tomorrow afternoon, with nationalist parties expected to do very well in both contests. Well, in Scotland, the SNP is seeking to win its 5th successive term in charge at Holyrood. And in Wales, Labour could lose its control of the Senedd for the first time in 27 years. So where are we interested in? Let's show you Basildon. We're waiting to speak to our chief political correspondent, John Craig. But certainly, Jack, what we're waiting to see is how far Reform and the Greens nibble away at the traditional two-party politics. Yeah, and the two-party system is going to be on show as having collapsed in this election. You know, we are now really in an era, especially in England, of 5-party politics, and especially for the Labour Party, they are under attack from all sides in all places. You know, how do they fight on not just 2 fronts, but 5 separate fronts? You know, they have the Greens nipping at their heels on the left, Sat Polanski taking big chunks out of their left-wing vote, and then clearly Reform doing incredibly well in their old northern working-class heartlands. Nigel Farage really going to make a strong showing in these local elections. So for Keir Starmer, even if he survives this, what's his strategy going forward?
Yeah, specifically in places like Essex. Beth, then, we heard what Jack and Jess have said. Baked in bad for Labour, it seems. Baked in bad for the Conservatives. The question is, given it's baked in, how much will it matter?
Look, these elections really do matter. Firstly, it's across the country. So you have 136 councils, over 5,000 seats in England being contested. You have the Welsh and Scottish parliaments up for grabs. So it's a proper nationwide election. Of course, no elections in Northern Ireland. And it's a proper midterm moment. It's the first ballot box test and verdict on Keir Starmer's government since that landslide of July 2024. And I think it's also going to be this moment that we look back on as the night two-party politics truly broke. And we're going to see that in Technicolor. And I think what flows from those two things about it being seismic in terms of the electoral test for Starmer and also multi-party politics is I think we're going to see blue-red Britain turn into a true rainbow of colours, because Reform could end up being the main opposition in Wales and in Scotland. They could take swathes of councils from the Red Wall down to Essex on the outskirts of London. And then you could see Plaid Cymru in Wales, potentially take the Senedd from Labour, who have held it ever since devolution 27 years ago. Take that in, what a moment that would be. And the SNP could hold on to power in Holyrood. So we're going to wake up tomorrow morning. There will be about 30 councils counted, but as we go through that day, by the end of the day, Britain could truly look like a rainbow coalition of different parties. So that's the first thing why I think it really is seismic. I think it will be a moment that we perhaps look back on as the moment where what we've been talking about for a long time actually plays out in an election. And then, of course, Starmer's survival. I mean, we could be on course for the worst ever Labour performance in a set of local elections ever. And he's the least popular Prime Minister ever, OK? So that is what he is dealing with when the polls, well, when the results come in. And I think Number 10 are bracing for a very difficult and emotional day on Friday. Labour could lose 3 out of every 4 seats they're contesting. They could lose up to 2,000 seats. That would be, if it was as bad as that, a third of all Labour councillors across England. Imagine the emotional toll of that on a party that is already really struggling in the polls. And so then you come to what flows from that. And we have been, well, we've all been doing it, haven't we? Endless rumours about Starmer and can he survive? And I think there's a few things to say on that, and I'm sure we'll get into this a bit more. Number one, it's really clear that the Prime Minister intends to fight on. You know, when I speak to people in Number 10, he's not going anywhere. He has a mandate. He won't agree a departure date, as some of his cabinet might be quietly asking him to do, or people in his party. I think what we'll see tomorrow is him coming out with passion, trying to appeal to the party. I don't think saying, oh, it's midterm blues is going to work for him. He's got to kind of bring it tomorrow. I think they know that he's under massive pressure. But I think that they're bracing for some junior resignations. It seems that perhaps the Cabinet are going to come out in support, but that's unclear. I think the temperature of the immediate challenge has kind of gone down a notch or two in recent days, but I think we can get a bit more into that. But it is unclear what will happen when the emotional reaction spills over when the results actually land. I think in terms of why is he being helped at the moment, even though this is so dire, is that when you talk around the party, there is no consensus on a successor to Starmer, and there's no consensus on the manner or timing with which he should or could be removed. And I think that is actually might help him to battle on, but my God, he's going to be bloodied if he does.
Yeah, I can feel a lot of nodding heads. We'll get to your thoughts on many of those
Sorry,
points.
That was a lot of thoughts. I might have
there's a lot to talk
overshared.
about. Should we see what's been happening today then, before we hear from everybody else? In fact, we'll hear from David Lammy. We'll see if he does the midterms blues line as well. In England, voting has taken place then in 136 local councils around the country, including all of London's 32 borough councils. Well, within these councils, there are 5,014 seats up for grabs. And then in Scotland, then, all 129 seats in Holyrood, the Scottish Parliament, were up for election as well today. All 96 seats in the Welsh Parliament, the Senedd, are being contested in a new voting system, in fact, which actually increased the number of seats from 60. Let's take a look at what the latest polling from YouGov says about what might happen. This is the picture, imagine it for the whole UK, so as if it was the Westminster government, actually, not just for England. Reform UK are currently topping the polls on 25%, with Labour behind on 18%. Next to the Conservatives, they are on 17%, then the Green Party on 15%, and then finally the Liberal Democrats on 14%. This is the situation in Scotland. The SNP ahead on 39% of the vote, with Reform and Labour both on 18%. It is a different picture for the Greens, who are on just 2% of the vote share there. Let's go to Wales then. Plaid Cymru topping the polls on 33%. Reform are just behind them on 29%, while Labour, who have been the majority party in the Senedd, as Beth said, since it was created in 1999, they have a stranglehold on Wales, sit on just 12% of the vote. So let's hear from the parties then themselves. First, for Labour, here is the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy.
It is not unusual to be given a message by the electorate at midterm elections. Let's wait to see what comes in tonight. But yes, on the doorstep, it has been tough. There has been frustration, and we will have to pick up pace and really hear the public and deliver for the public, not the status quo. What people want to see is genuine change in their lives, and they want to believe that the Labour Party can deliver for them.
David Lammy there. Well, let's hear now from Zia Youssef, Reform UK spokesperson for Home Affairs, who said a new era of politics is on its way.
The duopoly that the two old parties have had on British politics, the uni party, the failed Tory Labour uni party, is going to be well and truly smashed today again, I think, just like it was last year. It heralds a new era of politics. And what it means is that, as we said throughout this campaign, those of you who voted for reform, you've taken a big step towards giving this country secure borders, the deportation of people who are in this country illegally, the return of law and order and cost of living coming back under control, and just as importantly, a big step to getting Keir Starmer out of number 10 Downing Street.
Zia Youssef there. So the deputy leader of the Liberal Democrats now, Daisy Cooper, says her party is hungry for these elections and that it is time for Sir Keir Starmer to go.
We Liberal Democrats are absolutely raring to go. We have been knocking on absolutely thousands and thousands of doors right up and down the country. We are hungry for these elections because we know that in many parts of the country it is a straight-up fight between Reform UK and us Liberal Democrats. I've said for a long time that the Labour government promised change and they failed to deliver. We know the country is incredibly weary. They are fed up of the sleaze and the scandal that we saw in the last Parliament, and they don't want any more of it in this Parliament. So unfortunately, I think it is time for the Prime Minister to go.
Well, we're discussing that moment. I want to pick up on the end of the duopoly part with you, Jessica. If it is the end of the duopoly, can we still have a first-past-the-post voting system? Because some of the margins of wins tonight might be incredibly small.
I think, you know, if you zoom out over the past decades, you've seen lots of events that have strained the British constitution to almost a breaking point, you know, whether that was Brexit or COVID. And now, again, we're seeing this emergence of five-party politics, which our electoral system is very ill-equipped to cope with, and what can throw out some extremely distorting results. And I think it is, you know, there's something in what Zia Youssef says. The British electorate, again, for the last decade, has been saying over and over again that it wants change. It wants to see quite radical change to the way the country is run or governed, and it's tried lots of different ways to vote to try to push for that change. And it feels, I think, to many people that change has not been forthcoming.
Well, are we still in protest mode, do you think? Perhaps Jack could answer this. I mean, was Labour a protest vote in the last general election? And is tonight, the voting of today, rather, and the counting of overnight tonight, Friday and Saturday, are we going to see protest votes continuing, do you think?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, like, at the last election, you know, it wasn't like a particular policy area or great idea from Labour which won that election. It was seen as a vote which was going to put an end to 14 years of pretty tumultuous Tory rule, especially the last few years, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak. And on the front page of their manifesto, they put one word, which was change. And so far, voters haven't seen that change. You know, they thought that Keir Starmer was going to be the self-styled Mr. Rules. He was going to be the person, the human rights lawyer, who's going to restore order to politics and Parliament. And what they've seen since July 24 is anything but. We've seen scandal, we've seen sleaze, we've seen U-turns galore. And I think that is why people are so fed up. And, you know, you look at Keir Starmer's own individual popularity, it is on the floor. And you're getting to a point now, and I think this is where Labour MPs are getting to, even though we can talk about how, you know, there's no viable candidate currently to replace Keir Starmer, the question for them is, have the public just made up their minds on Keir Starmer? And I think that is a dangerous point for him to be in right now.
But the public are fickle. We've seen the pressure on Nigel Farage over financing of him. We've seen Zach Palensky and his personal opinion polls, Beth, dive this week. Whether any of that will play out in the voting today, or whether actually, you know, the public aren't that bothered about that, whether this idea of the protest vote continuing. I mean, we'll have to wait for see. I mean, we can tell from some of the first results, can't we? About, you know, 1 a.m. we'll start to digest how people have decided to, you know, cross the box.
Yeah, and look, I think that it remains to be seen about, issues around donations that Nigel Farage has received. That story has been building in recent days, but he hasn't done really much media around that. And then with Zap Polanski, actually, I think the polling for the Greens has come off slightly. But the thing is, when these events happen quite close to elections, they don't necessarily percolate through to voting intention in that way. Look, I really think that the story of this day overnight and into the next day will be the rise of these multi-party politics. And I think actually seeing reform, I mean, they have been consistently polling ahead of the Labour Party and the Conservatives pretty much ever since the general election. They are topping the polls, and I think this will be the moment where that consistent poll lead actually turns into reality. At the moment, they lead 12 councils. They control 12 councils. This is going to be a huge step change, and it's not just in terms of what they control. Imagine a world in which they do become the opposition in Scotland and potentially in Wales. They really then do become a party with a national platform.
Yeah, I mean,
it will be quite transformative.
Shape politics there, certainly. The question is, have they peaked, do you think? If we are in the midterms, can they sustain their run until a general election? I mean, I know this is about local council night, but, if we're talking broadly.
And I think, that one of the things that the polls consistently show is that general elections are different to local elections. People vote differently often when it comes to local elections, rightly or wrongly, because they are incredibly important elections about who should run your local services. People see it as a chance to do more of a protest vote. There was some very interesting YouGov polling which suggested that there is an anti-reform coalition of voters in practically every constituency, that people are prepared to basically back if they don't support reform, they're prepared to back basically any party to keep reform out. So that, that will be a powerful tool, and it depends whether Labour can really be the beneficiaries of that, or whether they have, one of the reasons that Keir Starmer is so unpopular is not just because people who gave Labour a chance are now drifted away from him. He's alienated his core vote. He's alienated his core Labour voters and progressives who are also looking elsewhere, and he needs to bring them back. That's essentially the first task of Keir Starmer if he's to survive.
Yes, and we'll talk afterwards, about what he can do next week and what sort of policy changes we might hear from. But in the meantime, this is a litmus test, so should we get a litmus test around the country too? Counting is set to get underway. As we all know, it's verification first. It can take some time. But let's hear then from our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who is in the count in Basildon and Essex, and Alex Rogers, who is in Tameside in Greater Manchester. John, let's go to you first of all. Where are you and why is that of interest?
Well, welcome, Anna, to the Basildon Sporting Village, home of the only Olympic-sized swimming pool in the county, 50 metres. And tonight, all the signs are that at the end of the night, Labour and the Conservatives will have that sinking feeling, and Reform UK are set to make a big splash. Now, the county of Essex, always a big political battleground in elections, but more so this time. A real fight, in particular, between Reform UK and the Conservatives. In this county, there are 18 members of Parliament. 10 of those are Conservative, include 6, including Kemi Badenoch, members of the Shadow Cabinet. All fear for their seats at the next general election. And none of them have particularly large majorities. James Cleverly is an MP here, Priti Patel as well, amongst the Shadow Cabinet members. Now, in Essex, there are 6 counts going on this evening. The first is at Harlow, where we're told the results should come about 1:30. Rochford about 2 o'clock. Here in Basildon, the returning officer, Gary Jones, he's the chief executive of the council, tells me first results about 1 a.m, final results about 3 a.m. Then we've got Brentwood, I beg your pardon, round about the same time. Southend-on-Sea about 3 o'clock, and Colchester about 3:30. Here in Basildon, it's a council of 42 councillors. There are 14 wards, and there are 14 seats on the council up for grabs tonight. Of those, Labour are defending 6, the Conservatives 4. There are currently 8 independents and non-aligned, just 1 Reform UK at the moment. But This is a county where Reform UK are strong. They have high hopes here. Another county where they have high hopes counting tomorrow is Thurrock. Nigel Farage is very confident of victory here. But there are signs that the Reform UK are going to make major inroads on this council. Perhaps they probably won't. They won't take control of the council because only a third or so of them seats being contested tonight. But Reform are set to become, according to all the predictions here, major players in Basildon and indeed major players throughout the county of Essex over the next 24 hours. If there's one county where Reform UK are poised to do pretty well, it's here in Essex.
Very interesting. John, thank you very much indeed. So let's head to Alex Rogers then in Tameside. I seem to remember that this partly overlaps the area where Gorton and Denton had that by-election, which, as we know, was a tussle between Reform and the Greens. But tell us about Tameside, Alex. Why is that going to be interesting tonight?
Tameside, Greater Manchester, the backyard of Angela Rayner. Only a third of seats are up for grabs here tonight, so Labour will be playing a defensive game. It will all be about how many seats they can hold on to. To lose control of this council, a council they've held on since 1979, they only need to lose 10 seats, so they'll be wary of the threat from Reform, the Green Party and some independents. And as you say, Anna, Gorton and Denton, the by-election win that the Greens took off Labour, the Greens will be hoping they can pick up some seats in the Denton wards. And Reform will be hoping that successes they've seen in white working class areas, they can replicate that here. So Labour will be hoping to hold on. I think also looking at the wider northwest picture, this could be one of a number of councils that slips from being into Labour hands into no overall control. If that happens, it suggests that support is draining away from Labour in one of its key heartlands, but counting is underway. It's still early in the night and it's very much all to play for.
Alex, John, obviously plenty more from both of you overnight. And a reminder at this point that our special programme does start at midnight, and that is with Jonathan Samuels and our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, as well, and the team as well, who will feed in those election results. In the meantime, lots of reaction from some of the party leaders. Kemi Badenoch has said, I have been so inspired by the work I've seen from our members, candidates and supporters who've been out knocking on doors, delivering leaflets and making calls. I'm proud and indeed lucky to lead such a great team of people. Thank you for every conversation, every hour volunteered and every effort made to help us fight for a stronger Conservative future. Similar, in fact, from the SNP leader up in Scotland, John Swinney. I'm incredibly proud of the positive, ambitious campaign the SNP has run over the last 6 weeks. Our campaign focused entirely on the priorities of the people of Scotland. Tomorrow we will learn the decision of their vote. It's much longer than that. I'm subbing it as I go. Lib Dem leader as well, suggesting that they are on course for a historic 8th consecutive year of election gains. Many people suggesting they might be plateauing or flatlining. In the meantime, Lucy Powell, which I know is of interest to you two, the deputy leader of the Labour Party, Labour has run positive local campaigns right across the country, focused on our record of delivery, bringing communities together and addressing the public's #1 priority, easing the cost of living, and so on. Beth, I know you went to interview her in Manchester yesterday, and I know that was inspired by what Jessica had written in the weekend papers.
Yeah,
in Leeds.
Jess was my inspiration because the reason is, at the weekend there was a fascinating article that my little eyes pinged at, which was Jess had interviewed Lucy and you had asked her, hadn't you, is Keir Starmer the right? Well, you tell it.
Well, I was asking. She was talking about how, you know, this desire for change that we've all been talking about, and whether and I asked her whether, you know, if you think that Labour has got all the right policies, surely you believe that they're not. You know, there is someone new, needs someone new to communicate them. That surely Keir Starmer's not the right man to do that, and she just kind of brushed it away and said, "I'm not going to get into that." And I was quite struck by that she wouldn't say, no, he is.
Yes.
Right.
So I was also quite struck by that. And so I asked her if I could go and do an interview on the campaign trail.
Shall we listen to it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, God, here it is.
He takes full responsibility for the decisions of the Labour Party and of the government, and he's been the first to admit where he has made mistakes, whether it was the appointment of Peter Mandelson, whether it was around the winter fuel payments. You know, that's still an issue sometimes on the doorstep with pensioners as well.
Do you think he is the right leader to lead this change agenda?
Yes, yeah, and he is our leader, and he is leading, and he's leading around the world as well.
Okay. She then went on, and I the next bit of that interview, I go, will he be the right leader regardless of these election results? And then she said yes, and I was really struck by this because I literally asked her the same question that you had asked her, and I got a very different answer, which was she rode in behind the Prime Minister. And the reason I think that was significant was what it told me, and I'd be interested in what you think about it, was that Lucy Powell is a real kind of kingmaker, a real figure of the soft left of Labour. She's the deputy leader. You know, she carries a lot of currency in the party. What that signalled to me was that wing might not be ready to go over the top. I then asked her later on in the interview whether she wanted Andy Burnham back in Parliament, and she said, yes, I very much do. And then at that point, I thought, this is interesting because it's suggesting to me that this might not be the moment where a challenge comes for Keir Starmer, because Lucy Powell is signalling there that she, for one, does not want to unseat him at this moment. I mean, that's what... I don't know what you took from that.
Absolutely, and I think that's absolutely right. I mean, you know, every Labour MP I speak to on that wing of the party, particularly those, and I think there has been a significant increase in support for Andy Burnham even over the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
They are prepared to keep the Prime Minister in place, to act to keep the Prime Minister in place, to find a route for Burnham back into the party. Now, that route is very unclear because as long as Keir Starmer remains determined to be Prime Minister and stay in that role, he's going to block Andy Burnham from returning to Parliament.
Do you mind if we all hold our thoughts? Fascinating as they are, a lot is happening with Iran, actually. So the news is Iran has accused the United States of violating the ceasefire. It is being reported tonight that the US military has carried out strikes on ports in Iran and that air defences have been activated in the capital, Tehran. The head of the military has suggested that an Iranian oil tanker travelling from Iran's coastal waters towards the Strait of Hormuz has been hit. Another one near the Emirati port of Fujairah, which is absolutely critical in terms of getting oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. Let us get the latest if we can. Hear what the Americans are saying about this from our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who is in Washington. Mark, bring us up to date.
Well, it's striking that it's the Iranians that are saying far more, publicly at least, than the Americans are saying. But something is definitely up. It is clear that the ceasefire, if it hasn't broken down, is certainly creaking significantly. What we do know is that there have been airstrikes, which we believe to have been carried out by the United States, perhaps with regional help, around the area of the Strait of Hormuz. We've got a map to show you the areas where we understand these airstrikes have taken place. It is Bandar Abbas, which is, if you look at the peak there of the landmass to the south, if you go due north, you'll see Bandar Abbas there. Minab is just to the east of that. There is a naval base, an inland naval base there. That, of course, the location of the attack on the girls' school carried out by accident by the Americans at the beginning of this conflict. And also Qasham, which is an island just in the Arabian Gulf there that you can probably make out too. This is all areas around the Strait of Hormuz, which has been blockaded by the Americans, a reaction to the blockade put in place effectively by the Iranians. Now, as I say, the Americans are saying very, very little at the moment, and hopefully we'll get something probably from President Trump on Truth Social at some stage. What the Iranians are saying, and we have no proof of this being the case as fact, but the Iranians are saying that they responded to the attack and that they have targeted a number of American ships and that they have damaged those American ships. So that is potentially significant. We have had nothing more from the Americans at this stage, although I'm just looking now. that's just coming into me now. So there are a bit of an update here, Anna. We can report that the US has conducted strikes against at least 2 locations in Iran today. That is according to a US official just in the last few seconds, confirming what I was saying a moment ago. The strikes in Bandar Abbas and Qasem Island were defensive. That's how the Americans are framing this at the moment. Not an offensive restarting of the war, but defensive action. They do not constitute a resumption of major combat operations. Clearly, the American president does not want to officially restart this conflict. He wants to bring it to a conclusion. He wants to find an off-ramp. He wants to find a way out of this. But at the same time, he's facing pressure from regional allies who are still under attack. A couple of days ago, despite Trump saying that Iran's military has been decimated, there were, I think, 15 cruise and ballistic missile attacks on Gulf Arab countries from Iran. And they are upset about that. They want that to stop. And so Trump is under some considerable pressure. But, Anna, he's going to Beijing early next week. He does not want this to be an active war while he is in Beijing.
Yes, given the suggestion is they were defensive, one wonders if, once again, they're targeting missile silos from what you said, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. So bringing us that breaking news there, Mark Stone, the US has conducted strikes against at least 2 locations in Iran today, according to US official. And as far as they are concerned, the Americans, this does not constitute a resumption of major combat operations against Iran. The suggestion is that this was defensive action. Really fascinating. One quick thought from all of you, which is, can Keir Starmer ride out whatever comes after counting?
I think potentially, although I think that his downfall could be the tens of thousands of mandals and files we're expecting to drop in the next few weeks. And so even if he manages to survive the next 48 hours or so, that is going to be a killer for him.
Jessica?
And I think we've all seen, and from politics over the last few years, it's not always the thing that you expect that causes a Prime Minister to resign. With Boris Johnson, everyone expected it to be Partygate. In fact, it was the conduct of one of his Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, which tipped MPs over the edge.
Beth?
I think it's been extremely febrile and in the past couple of weeks, and if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have been very on the fence about whether or not he may face a challenge from either Rayner or Angela Rayner or Wes Streeting. Maybe they wouldn't directly challenge him, but something happens that brings about a contest. I think now, as Jess was saying, I think people are coalition in the party more around Andy Burnham, and I think he might have a bit more time, but I think it's going to be really bloody over the next 24, 48, 72 hours as those results come in and there is this outpouring of anger and upset from a party that's going to see potentially up to 2,000 councillors lose their seats. That really hurts. And I think there's going to be a lot of lashing out.
OK, fascinating. I know you're a Pearly, chasing party leaders. Jack is too, but he's going to stay, thankfully.
Made of stone and stuff.
I've got to get to bed. I'm of a certain age now. I need my beauty sleep.
Well, that's true. You know, I'm.
So, Beth, we're going to say thank you very much, and we'll look forward to your coverage tomorrow. You've had fun.
I've had fun.
Yes, I'm not sure the party leaders are. They're probably twitching right now, aren't they? Anyway, lots more still to come. In the next half hour, we will have more on the MV Hondius heading now to Tenerife with 5 cases of Hantavirus now confirmed, and we will take a first look too at what is making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. Back in just a moment. Beth.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter.
I began by asking,
thank you so much,
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Let's bring you some breaking news then. We've just had a full statement from CENTCOM, the military wing which is running the Iran operations. They had this to say on what we have seen in Iran. They say that US forces intercepted unprovoked Iranian attacks and responded with self-defense strikes as US Navy-guided missile destroyers transited the Strait of Hormuz to the Gulf of Oman. Iranian forces launched multiple missiles, they said, drones and small boats. As these vessels transited, it is the USS Truxtun, the USS Rafael Peralta and the USS Mason. They transited the international sea passage. Note the international element of this. No assets were struck. According to CENTCOM, US Central Command eliminated inbound threats and targeted Iranian military facilities responsible for attacking US forces, including missile and drone launch sites, command and control locations, and intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance codes. CENTCOM, it goes on to say, does not seek escalation, but remains positioned and ready to protect American forces. So it appears that US vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz were targeted by the Iranians. The Americans suggesting defensive action was taken, including taking out missile, command and control and drone sites. But I mean, you know, it shows how tense it is, does it not, despite the fact they're in the ceasefire? This is often what you get with ceasefires. You have both sides accusing the other of violating it, and that seems to be what we're seeing here. I think it is hyped up, not least because we have two countries that absolutely loathe each other and have a lot of history of bad blood, but also an incredibly erratic American president, an incredibly destabilised Iranian regime. And so, you know, it does seem now we've had so many false dawns in terms of trying to get a ceasefire and get ships through that crucial oil waterway. But once again, it doesn't look good, does it? Yeah, absolutely. So America, just to reiterate, says Iran did not hit any US assets in the attack. If they had, goodness me, you know, one wonders what would happen next. But, you know, here we are, just as Trump prepares to head to China.
Yeah, and it comes, obviously, doesn't it, as the world was holding its breath, thinking that we might be coming closer to a resolution of the Strait of Hormuz. And now, you know, we're sort of back to seeing these escalating attacks. As you say, Trump going to China. There's this UN resolution which is all about the Strait of Hormuz, which the US is hoping to get backing for, worried about a veto potentially by China, which would be embarrassing if it happens around the time of his visit. So many different moving parts at play here. Hopefully this doesn't escalate further. I'm just reading to another blow for Donald Trump. A federal court has ruled against new global tariffs that Trump imposed after a stinging loss at the Supreme Court. So he's going back, asking for more tariffs. They've once again been thrown out. So it's an interesting night in the world of Trump, is it not? Keeping an eye on that Iranian situation, we'll see what more comes out about that. But it does seem that the Americans have fired towards Iranian missile sites after US vessels came under attack. We'll get more, no doubt. Should we see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers now, then? Let us start with The Times. It reports that Ed Miliband has privately suggested Sir Keir Starmer should set out a timeline for his departure from Number 10. The Express reports for the Prime Minister to go with the headline, "It is time for Starmer to stand aside." The Eye writes Angela Rayner met a key power broker in Sheffield to canvass support, but left empty-handed. On the front page of the Daily Star, the arrest of a balaclava-clad man over possession of an offensive weapon near Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's home in Sandringham. The Mirror has the same story with the headline, "Andrew in Masked Man Terror." The Telegraph reports China has exploited the Home Office's remote working policy to spy on the UK.
The Guardian leads on a warning for schools to remove pictures of pupils' faces from their websites over fears criminals are using them to create abuse imagery. The Financial Times reports Wall Street's rebound has been driven by the smallest number of stocks on record, prompting concerns over its stability. While the front of the Metro has a mother meeting the transplant recipient who was given.
A lot of local and national seats are up for grabs.
Kim Kardashian's Met Gala look that is on the front of the Sun. Oh, it's nice to have a bit of light relief after that, isn't it? Anyway, let's go back to the elections. But the tricky bit, of course, for the newspapers is they've not got a single sniff of a vote result to talk about. Should we start with the Times? Ed Miliband and a timeline for Starmer to go.
Very interesting report in the Times, which says that a couple of weeks ago, Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, and probably one of, I guess, Keir Starmer's closest confidants in Cabinet, advised him to set out a timetable for his departure. Now, if this is true, and Ed Miliband's team says that they don't recognise the account of this meeting, although that is what we call in the trade, I think, a non-denial denial, it would be pretty extraordinary, given that one of his most senior ministers, someone that carries incredible weight in the party, the standard bearer of the soft left, former Labour leader himself, is urging the Prime Minister to stand aside so that he avoids this incredibly bloody coup, which ultimately probably will take place at some point, to oust Keir Starmer. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting developments tonight. Obviously, it has to be seen in the context of these local elections, and we don't have long to wait just to see how bad that's going to be for the Prime Minister.
No, I mean, the maelstrom started early. We're fully in it now, don't you think? The speculation, the writing. Daily Express quotes the MP Barry Gardiner, who is safety of the left. You know, I mean, where does it go for Keir? Does he sit and just think, do you know what, I'm not going to read the papers? Is that what he's going to be doing this weekend?
I think you particularly won't want to read the Express. I'm going to go deep into Labour Party law here, but Keir Starmer and Barry Gardiner, I think, have got one of the most historically bad relationships of almost anyone. If you go back to the Brexit days when Keir Starmer was shadow Brexit secretary and they were both in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, Barry Gardiner was secretly recording calling his 5 Brexit tests that Keir Starmer used to talk about, calling them the B word. And so ever since then, they've absolutely despised each other. And so this is certainly personal, I think, for Barry Gardiner on the front page of the Express.
So in terms of what might happen, the idea is that Keir Starmer will have a big policy announcement early next week. You've got the King's Speech, what is it, midweek next week?
Wednesday.
You're suggesting potentially the rest of the Mandelson files could come out as soon as possible after that, potentially scheduled for a week on Monday. So it's already very busy. What will Keir Starmer have to do you think, to settle the nerves of the party, to keep the soft left on side, who are, most likely to unseat him, do you think, at this point? And is there going to be a reshuffle? And if so, who would go?
Well, there's a bit of a paradox, I think, in terms of what's likely to happen, because clearly Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are going to lose most of their seats across the country to Reform, and to a lesser extent, therefore, the Greens and the Liberal Democrats. What we're likely to see is the soft left, who have become very muscular in the Labour Party, try and assert their dominance and get Keir Starmer, we suspect, to probably shift more to the left, whether that is cozying back up to the European Union, whether that is diluting some of his immigration reforms. Now, Keir Starmer...
So that means, I mean, you've got a story, haven't you, about pressure on the Home Secretary on that very point? Yeah,
I mean, you know, Shabana Anoud, the Home Secretary, is very resolved to try and push ahead with these reforms to the indefinite leave to remain. But that has made some Labour MPs incredibly squeamish. In fact, we saw Angela Rayner herself come out and say that applying it retrospectively to people already in this country is, in her words, un-British. And so we're already seeing the Angela Rayners, the Lou Hay, the Lucy Powells, really sort of like flexing their muscles inside the Labour Party. And I'm sure we're going to see more of that. For Keir Starmer himself, and Downing Street, you know, they're not going into this blind. These local elections have been in the diary for a long time now. They've known for a while they're going to be pretty bad for them. So what are they going to do? You know, are they going to do a cabinet reshuffle, bonfire the Blairites and bring more soft left people in there to rejig the balance of power? It's an option which Prime Ministers against the wall often like to do. Obviously, we've got the King's Speech on Wednesday. We're expecting a pretty action-packed agenda. That could be something which takes up more time, you know, takes the sting out of it. We then have a parliamentary, a few days off where MPs aren't in Westminster, and so clearly they're not going to be in the bars plotting. I think that the crunch point is going to come...
Or lamenting with local councillors back in their constituencies.
Well, exactly. Nothing's good. I do think, and I mentioned this earlier, there is going to be a point where in the next few weeks they have to release the humble address files on Peter Mandelson, and we are expecting up to 100,000 communications between Peter Mandelson and senior members of the government, officials, advisors, ministers, civil servants, and that could be absolutely bombshell in terms of what comes out of that. Peter Mandelson scandal, we know, is looming large over Keir Starmer. It really hits a sore spot with his Labour MPs. The country can understand it in a nutshell because it's a very easy scandal to follow. That could be something, I think, which really makes the dam burst.
I'm just going to bring in some breaking news, actually. It is concerning a story that we've seen on the newspapers as well. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, you heard the reporting earlier. It seems that someone has now been charged on that. They call him Alex Jenkinson. He's 39. He's been charged with 2 counts of harassment after an incident in Wolferton near Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's home on the King's Sandringham estate. That is according to Norfolk Police just in. Jessica, we've seen it already, but let's go to that double-page spread in the Time, which is the 4 reasons why it's not the moment to get rid of Keir Starmer. You know, a hasty reading of it. You know, will he be speaking privately to many MPs? He doesn't reach out well, we know, to many of them. But what is this argument going to be? The double-page spread in the Times is where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think his first argument is that he will not go quietly, and that has been the main argument of the Andy Burnham camp, which has said, do a dignified exit, set out a timetable, let's not have a bloody leadership contest, let's not do it like the Tories do it, and we will do it in an orderly manner, but sometime before the next election. He's going to absolutely, totally reject that, and he will say, if you want to dislodge me, you will have a fight and it will be embarrassing and we will be compared to the Conservative Party. He'll also say, you know, that we are, as we've just been hearing, in the middle of potential international crisis, that it will look self-indulgent to the country for Labour to be going through going through a leadership contest, and again compare unfavourably to the Tories. And also to say, you know, the plans that he's put in place over the past couple of years, the investment in public services, all of these things will start to bear dividends. People will start to feel better off over the course of the next couple of years. But I think there's a view forming in the Labour Party that even if that's the case, Keir Starmer has just become such a sort of toxic brand, such a toxic spokesman for those changes. They won't reap the benefits of them.
Yeah. 2 quick words on other people we need to keep an eye on. First of all, The Eye is reporting that Angela Rayner, a secret meeting hits Rayner's hopes of becoming Prime Minister. And then also in The Times, they report that Burnham has a seat lined up. Do you want to just do those 2 just quickly? We've got about a minute because we want to get to the Hantavirus story.
Yeah, well, listen, you know, like Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, along with Wes Streeting, are probably the 3 front runners who are going to emerge in any leadership contest. All of them have their problems. You know, Angela Rayner still hasn't managed to shake the tax scandal around her. She's very well liked within the grassroots Labour Party. Maybe not so much in the country. And I know that Sky and YouGov have been running these polls showing that actually, I think Andy Burnham is the only person actually I think who's actually would poll better in terms of who the public think would be a better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer. Wes Streeting almost has the opposite problem, really. You know, he's not very well liked amongst some of the left-wing grassroots. He's been a bit of a factionalist. He's been a bit of a street fighter when it comes to Labour politics. And Andy Burnham, we know the issue with him. At the moment, there's no clear route back to Westminster. Also, we think another MP we hear might be potentially willing to give up their seat to get Andy Burnham back. But he's still got the NEC to fight, and he's still got Downing Street to fight ahead of him. So the article says Andy Burnham is plotting a return to Westminster within weeks and could use a speech tomorrow to challenge Keir Starmer for the Labour Party. We know that he's pulled. He's not appearing at that now, so we will see. OK, talk more in a moment. Let's go to Hantavirus, the outbreak now. The number of confirmed cases has risen to 5. Health officials say it is not the beginning of another pandemic. The cruise ship where the outbreak began is currently on its way to Tenerife, where it is expected to dock on Saturday. Well, our correspondent Sajid Chowdhury reports now from Tenerife.
This sleepy dock on the south coast of Tenerife is about to get really busy. By the end of the weekend, expect to see a flurry of activity as the hantavirus-stricken cruise ship, the MV Hondius, arrives. It's making the locals nervous.
I really don't get why Spain allowed them to come in, but they are human beings too, so they need treatment and somebody to take care of them.
I'm really angry with the situation in Spain as always, because we always need to get everything here, doesn't matter the consequences.
A little bit scared A little bit, yeah.
There's also a lot of opposition from the port workers here. They've expressed their anger of what they say is a lack of information around the transfer, and they've threatened to block the ship's entry. That could prove to be another obstacle. To keep the locals happy, but mainly to keep everyone on and off board safe, passengers and crew will need to be moved carefully off the ship. That is a challenge for the Spanish civil defence.
The evaluations will be carried out from the moment when we see that asymptomatic people are ready to be evacuated from our country. There will be a quick process. They will not leave the boat until the plane is there to take them to their countries. Once they leave the boat, they will be taken by road. It's about 10 minutes drive. This route will be provided by the shipping company, but under the supervision of the Spanish government.
With several hospitalisations already, the World Health Organization offered this reassurance.
This is not the start of a COVID pandemic. This is an outbreak that we see on a ship. This is not the same situation we were in 6 years ago. It doesn't spread the same way like coronaviruses do. It's very different. It's that close, intimate contact that we've seen. And most hantaviruses don't transmit between people at all.
For this Dutch family on holiday here, the arrival of the ship carrying their home country's flag is not a concern.
I actually heard that one of the patients has been to my hometown, has shipped to my hometown, but I wasn't very concerned about it. Yeah, I think they will handle it quite well.
Hantavirus has already disrupted the cruise ship's journey, and as it approaches its final stop, things are still far from smooth sailing. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News, at Granadilla Port in Tenerife.
So let's talk more about that, because the race is on now to try to track down many of those people who got off this vessel in St Helena, one of whom died because she was accompanying her husband. 29 have gone to, I think it's a dozen countries. The WHO is trying to say, don't panic, you have to have very close contact. This is not like a coronavirus pandemic. Nonetheless, people are watching this very closely.
And I think that's the problem here. I mean, it does feel very March 2020. We're talking about contact tracing, we're talking about quarantine, we're talking about human transmission. The World Health Organization today have been at pains to stress that this is not lockdown 2.0, and actually the chances of catching this for another human is quite rare. But nevertheless, it clearly is causing anxiety around the world when you see just how easy it is for infections to spread beyond borders. And, as we get into a sort of more globalised, interconnected world already, we're seeing more tropical diseases, I guess, come to the shores of Britain and elsewhere.
Yes, indeed so. And, the death rate for this is very high, which is deeply concerning. There was slightly better news for two of the Britons who were medically evacuated from this cruise ship. They're said to be improving, according to global health officials. One, a British passenger, understood to be a 69-year-old man, taken to South Africa, if you remember, on April the 27th, receiving care at a private health facility in Johannesburg. And the other that we reported on last night, Martin Anstey, aged 56, taken off the MV Hondius on Wednesday, flown to the Netherlands to receive specialist medical care. The news on them is that they are improving, but, deeply concerning for everybody still on the boat, everybody who's left, everyone who's sat next to somebody on planes that have disembarked.
And of course, you just see that spread of countries that this has already spread to. And of course, well before anyone knew that this virus was a problem, people were disembarking, getting on the planes and going home and have already spread it to those countries. Hopefully not much further than that, because as you said, that it's very close contact, which it involves. And of course, a cruise ship is the worst kind of place for that to happen, especially people living at such close quarters.
Yes, indeed. So we know that 2 British passengers arrived back independently. They are self-isolating. 19 British nationals were listed as passengers in total. And UK health experts have said now that the British passengers on board, who will be able to disembark if they're healthy, will be asked to self-isolate in the UK for 45 days. So coming up in the next hour of our programme, counting getting underway, obviously, in the local elections. Not everywhere counting undernight. There's the scene, Basildon in Essex. We'll be talking to our correspondents around the country. A fascinating night ahead.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighbourhood is rallied around her.
that's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter.
I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Tonight on The Wrap, Vote 2026. Millions go to the polls in England, Scotland and Wales in the biggest test of public opinion since the general election. Well, polls closed an hour ago. Now the counting is underway in elections which could see a seismic change in UK politics. It is set to be a tense night for all the party leaders in England, with the two main parties expected to lose hundreds of seats in the council elections. Labour are predicted to suffer big losses in England, Scotland and Wales. So can Sir Keir Starmer survive as Prime Minister? Well, we'll be live at two of the most significant counts and get the assessment of our chief political correspondent, John Craig. Also tonight, well, Donald Trump is still talking about a deal. US planes have bombed ports in Iran, with air defences activated in Tehran and Iran accusing the United States of breaching the ceasefire. And in the sport, a royal seal of approval. Lifelong fan Prince William celebrates Aston Villa reaching their first European final in 44 years. What a picture. Well, with me to discuss those stories, The Guardian's deputy political editor, Jessica Elgott, and The Sun's political editor, Jack Elsom. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including the arrest of a man after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was confronted near his home in Sandringham. Well, good evening to you and Jack and Jessica. Welcome to both of you as well. So the polls closed an hour ago in elections in England, Scotland and Wales, with counting already underway in some of the English council elections. Jack and Jessica, an extraordinary night ahead. In fact, it goes on all day tomorrow and even on Saturday they're counting, aren't they? What are we looking out for? Is this genuinely the end of the traditional two-party voting system? Jessica?
So many different stories happening across the country. Of course, one of the biggest stories will be reform in the North England. They made sweep some of those councils that even, Boris Johnson didn't hit those areas in that famous time when the Conservatives took the red ball. They might take Barnsley, they might take Sunderland. These are councils that have been Labour since their inception that could fall to reform, but completely the opposite story happening down in London, where potentially the Greens could pick up councils. We'll see whether Zach Polanski's party have that kind of insurgent energy there to take those parties. But Wales and Scotland both, being held by nationalist parties. So talking about 5-6 different parties all across the night.
Yes, Scotland counting on Friday, Wales counting on Friday, but 46 English councils counting overnight. It equates to about 1,200 seats, about a quarter of the total, in fact. 12 authorities overnight have a full council election where change in overall control is most likely. Jack?
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see, come Friday afternoon, is there such thing anymore as a Labour stronghold in England? Because they are being bitten away at from all sides by all parties in all areas of the country. Places like London, where they performed incredibly well historically, Wales, areas of the northeast, areas of the northwest, they are going to be obliterated in all areas by all sides. And so, for Keir Starmer, who is in a very weakened position right now and has burnt through his political lives at a rate of knots since he became Prime Minister, it's a very, very dangerous moment for him.
Fascinating. Yeah, go on.
And I think we shouldn't also forget the Conservatives. Almost exactly the same is happening to them, but we don't concentrate on that much. The three big county councils that are all up for grabs: Essex, Suffolk, and Norfolk. Almost all of them are predicted to go to reform. If those weren't Tory strongholds, I don't know what is.
Yeah, they're just being cannibalised by all sides, aren't they?
Yeah, go to Essex shortly, but certainly let's hear from the parties themselves. First of all, for Labour, this is the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy.
It is not unusual to be given a message by the electorate at midterm elections. Let's wait to see what comes in tonight. But yes, on the doorstep, it has been tough. There has been frustration, and we will have to pick up pace and really hear the public and deliver for the public, not the status quo. What people want to see is genuine change in their lives, and they want to believe that the Labour Party can deliver for them.
Well, after the polls closed, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, had this to say on X: "I have been so inspired by the work I've seen from our members, candidates and supporters who've been out knocking on doors, delivering leaflets and making calls. I'm proud and indeed lucky to lead such a great team of people. Thank you for every conversation, every hour volunteered and every effort made to help us fight for a stronger Conservative future." Well, here is what the Lib Dem leader Ed Davey said in former Conservative heartlands and old Labour strongholds alike. "We are standing up for decency and real change. What we have heard on those 3 million doorsteps is a clear verdict. People are deeply disappointed with a Labour government that has been too timid to fix the country, but they are also appalled by the rise of reform and Nigel Farage's Trump-style politics. While those on the extremes of the right and the left want to burn everything down, Liberal Democrats want to fix what's broken. Every Liberal Democrat local champion elected today will fight tirelessly for the communities they serve." Well, let's hear now from Zia Youssef, Reform UK's home spokesperson for Home Affairs, who said a new era of politics is on its way.
The duopoly that the two old parties have had on British politics, the uni party, the failed Tory Labour uni party, is going to be well and truly smashed today again, I think, just like it was last year. It heralds a new era of politics, and what it means is that, as we said throughout this campaign, those of you who voted for reform, you've taken a big step towards giving this country secure borders, the deportation of people who are in this country illegally, the return of law and order and cost of living coming back under control, and just as importantly, a big step to getting Keir Starmer out of number 10 Downing Street.
Well, our chief political correspondent John Craig is at the count in Basildon in Essex, and Alex Rogers is in Thameside in Greater Manchester. John, let's go to you first of all. The confidence there of reform, and it's specifically in places like where you are, that they're hoping to do well.
Yes, not just Basildon, but quite right across the county, Anna. I heard you mention Essex County Council a moment ago, and some of the boroughs are counting their county council votes, just to complicate things, tonight, although we don't get the full Essex result until tomorrow. I think it's mid-afternoon. And yes, Reform are very confident of doing very well throughout this county. Of course, it's the county where Nigel Farage is Member of Parliament for Clacton. His local council, that's Tendring, they are actually counting their county council votes tonight, along with Malden is another one. That's the constituency of the veteran Tory MP John Whittingdale. But as for the boroughs, well, this is Basildon. We're at the, it's called the Basildon Sporting Village. I won't repeat the gag about swimming pools that I mentioned an hour ago, but clearly there are some big piles there for Reform, it looks like, and they're in for a very good night. Just to recap what's happening tonight across the county, Harlow are counting. We hope to get their result probably around about 1:30. Then Rochford at 2 o'clock. Basildon here, the returning officer, that's Gary Jones, Chief Executive of the Council, tells me first results from here about 1 a.m, full result about 3 a.m. It won't be the full result, however, because they're only electing 14 councillors here. Basildon has 42 councillors. At present, Labour have 16, Conservatives 13. So of the ones being contested tonight, Labour are defending 6, Conservatives defending 4. But all the predictions here are that Reform are going to make big gains at the expense of both the Conservatives and Labour. Also tonight, we've got round about 3 o'clock Brentwood. Of course, that is the constituency of Alex Burghardt, a member of the Shadow Cabinet. Then we've got Southend at 3 o'clock and also Colchester at 3:30. Lib Dems have high hopes in Colchester. It's a seat where they had a Member of Parliament, Bob Russell, a former journalist, held that seat for quite a few years. It's always been a target seat for the Liberal Democrats. Just to reiterate the point about how significant this county is, it's packed with members of the Tory Shadow Cabinet. So Kemi Badenoch, as I'm sure everyone knows, is MP for North West Essex, used to be called Saffron Walden, that seat. Then here, the MP is Richard Holden, former Conservative Party chairman, who controversially dumped his seat in the northeast of England, came and fought Basildon and Billericay, only won by 20 votes. James Cleverley's MP for Braintree, Alex Burghardt I've mentioned, Brentwood and Ongar. Also in this county, Priti Patel, MP for Witham, a bit further north from here, up towards Clacton. So Mr Farage, I think, will have some very good results to celebrate in this county. Obviously, because they're only electing 14 here, it won't mean the complexion of the council completely changes hands because they're only voting for a third of the councillors. But in some of the councils where they are electing, for example, the whole council, Thurrock is one example. Mr Farage is very, very confident they're going to take Thurrock. Now, Thurrock is interesting because it's a seat, it's a council that used to be run by UKIP back in the day when Mr Farage's party was called UKIP. That is a seat, I mean, amongst talking about the MPs, Basildon South and Thurrock East is a seat held by James McMurdoch, who was, of course, elected as a Reform UK MP. No longer, he's an independent, but who knows, he may be back in the fold at some point. So, essentially a Tory Reform UK scrap here, But of course, Labour could suffer some damage, especially here. I mean, Labour are the largest group on the council. Basildon has been a seat in the past. In the Blair years, Angela Smith, now leader of the House of Lords, was the MP here. And if you go back to 1992, of course, John Major always said that when the Tories won Basildon that night, he knew he'd won the general election. That was the late David Amess won that. So, bit of history here in Basildon. And talking to people here, they think there might be a bit of history tonight with big gains by Reform UK.
John, your knowledge is absolutely incredible, is it not? Let's go to Alex, Tameside, Greater Manchester. You were telling us earlier that it's very significant too. It's a Labour heartland, but heartlands are falling, Alex.
Yes, potentially. That will be the big worry for Labour tonight. So the counting is underway. We're still in the early stages, in the initial stages. But from what we can see at the moment, it looks like Labour and Reform are neck and neck. And the big thing we could look for tonight, Anna, is whether this council, it moves from Labour to no overall control. We won't see Reform sweep the council because only a third of seats are up for grabs. So it will all be about Reform denying Labour control of the council that they've held on to since 1979. The Greens, they'll also be hoping to make some gains, maybe in some of the Denton wards following their by-election win in Gorton and Denton. But at the moment, it looks to be neck and neck between Labour and Reform.
Alex and John, a truly fascinating night ahead there and elsewhere. Much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed. It is funny, isn't it? We are talking about local council elections and obviously what's happening in Scotland and Wales. We're counting tomorrow. And the front page picture is Keir Starmer because this is about him, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, what these council elections actually do is decide who put your bins out and who fixes your potholes and who manages your local leisure centre. Obviously, Keir Starmer's premiership is firmly on the ballot paper here, whether he likes it or not. Midterm elections, as David Lammy says, to be fair, are often excuses to punish the incumbent government, and incumbent governments often do badly in elections. However, this is going to be, I think, especially badly for Labour. One, because of just the sheer scale in terms of numbers and geography of where they're losing their seats, but also because Keir Starmer really does not have much political capital left in the bank now. And for Labour rebels who have been gunning for him for some time, all the ammunition they need is a massive seismic defeat. 2 years after that landslide election victory, you know, it's clearly gone downhill incredibly quickly. Whether or not they move in the next 48 hours, whether it's some unforeseen event which eventually brings him down, I think that's probably to be decided.
So who are the rebels? You know, there are those who profess loyalty to him. I'm going to quote Ed Miliband here, who are now on the front page of the Times, suggesting that the Prime Minister is being urged by Miliband to set a timeline for leaving. This has resonance of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown at this point, does it not? What is this story here? How much stall do you have on it? Ed Miliband privately suggesting to Sir Keir that he should consider setting out a timeline for his departure amid concerns that he'll be forced out, and that would be extremely damaging for the Labour Party.
So this is the preferred tactic of the sort of Andy Burnham camp, for want of a better word, who we believe Ed Miliband is quite closely aligned with, that the Prime Minister should see the writing on the wall and instead of face a challenge from someone like Wes Streeting or from Angela Rayner and see the party kind of ripped into by a leadership fight and potentially enter that fight himself. He should name a timeline for an orderly transition. He could have a dignified exit in the time of his choosing. And of course, in Andy Burnham's mind, that would also involve a potential return of him to Parliament within that timeline. This is the Andy Burnham plan because it's the only plan that works for him. Yeah. Because if Keir Starmer says, thanks very much for your idea, no thanks, he doesn't have a route to become the leader of the Labour Party and the Prime Minister.
Yeah, very interesting. So the Eye suggests that Angela Rayner met a key power broker in Sheffield 2 weeks ago to canvass support but left empty-handed. We're a bit nonplussed and don't really know what this refers to be fair, but they also say the support of about 100 Labour MPs in what they call the soft left Tribune group are absolutely crucial to any leadership candidate, with Andy Burnham still considered the front-runner. So why has the soft left of Labour got so much power?
There's more of them.
Yeah, I was going to say because the arithmetic adds up, and they are clearly a massive caucus in the Labour Party.
It's all about maths at the minute. Today is all about maths.
Exactly. It's all about if you can count
the numbers,
or
isn't
not.
it?
Whether
Yeah,
you're in the sports halls with John Craig doing the ballots or running for leader.
Could we see a reshuffle of the Blairite types in the cabinet right now? And actually, Sir Keir Starmer swings towards the soft left, keeps his job, and he becomes, I don't want to use the word puppet, but he becomes, well, I don't know, how should we describe it? I'm trying to work it out.
Reshuffles only tend to work if you can do them from positions of strength, but I guess a quirk of the past few years when PMs have deployed them is that they have deployed them as a reset moment. It's often used as a look over here or sort of a rejigging of the balance of power in the cabinet. And so there are people who are just unsackable, despite the fact Keir Starmer probably wants to get rid of them. And so then you start looking at the people who would go quietly and probably wouldn't make a fuss. And so you're probably looking at people like your Liz Kendalls, your Peter Kyles, people who don't command a big power base within the party. They're seen as being on the centrist wing of the Labour Party, and then you might be able to make room for an Angela Rayner return. Keir Starmer has said on record many times he wants her back in the party. Maybe it's a return for Louise Haigh, the ex-Transport Secretary, who is a big figure of this Tribune group. Obviously had to resign in that phone fraud scandal. But it's interesting how people who have been kicked out, had to resign from Keir Starmer's cabinet, Angela Rayner's, your Lucy Powell's, your Louise Haigh, they've almost grown in power on the outside than they have on the inside, just because they are the standard bearer of that incredibly powerful faction of the soft left within the Parliamentary Labour Party, who right now are calling the shots.
Very interesting. So if we look at the numbers, as we talked about, it's all about numbers, more than 5,000 seats being fought, of which Labour are defending more than half of those available. The Conservatives are defending more than a quarter, many in the Shires. They are vulnerable, though, in Bexley and, in terms of urban areas, Kensington and Chelsea. Kemi Badenoch seems to be doing better. Why is it not going to translate for her in these elections, as is predicted?
Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch have almost got opposite problems. Keir Starmer is the drag on his party. For some reason or another, he is particularly toxic with voters, and you can see that in the polling. She way outperforms her party, but her party is toxic to voters because people think, we just had your lot in, we've just thrown them out, we're not ready to have them back again, even if they sort of quite like what they see of her, and especially don't seem to like her the more they see of her. People just aren't, it feels very much from the polls that people aren't ready to return to the Conservatives, and in fact that they are likely to lose significantly more seats at this set of elections.
So what does it mean for five-party politics, which it looks like we are going to get? What do we do about first past the post in England? Because, of course, we've seen changes in systems, have we not, for Wales and obviously for Scotland. It's different again. Can it survive first past the post? We like first past the post, but the margins of wins, they're going to be tiny, aren't they, in this?
Yeah, they will be. And, I guess in terms of like an exercise in democratic consent, that could be a stretch. Majoritarian systems like first past the post are meant to produce two-party politics. And the idea is that you appeal and win by broadening your coalition of voters. If you have an era of five-party politics, I guess the risk of that is that you only appeal to your sort of narrow base core interest in order to win elections. But you might win with
25% of the vote, and 75% of people don't want you there. I mean, what does democracy look like?
And it means that you essentially you govern or you try and win elections on a very, very narrow ticket by appealing to a very small selectorate of people in a certain constituency, rather than trying to do what Labour and the Tories have done over the past century, which is essentially scramble for the centre ground. Now we have parties being outflanked on the left, being outflanked on the right. Even Farage is now finding he's being outflanked on the right by Rupert Lowe's new start-up party. And so for all of them trying to sort of work out how to navigate this new era of politics, it's incredibly challenging.
And what we'll also need to see is how independents do, whether independents actually flourish in this election. Stand by, we've got lots more still to come. We will be talking in a moment about fighting that's been happening in the Gulf, with US warplanes in action tonight attacking Iran. More on that to come with Mark Stone.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They will be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can. We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood is rallied around her. It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Now, the US military has carried out strikes on ports in Iran tonight with air defences activated in the capital, Tehran. Iran has accused the United States of breaching the ceasefire. Let us hear then from our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who joins us from Washington. And Mark, we've heard from CENTCOM. What have they had to say about the action?
Yeah, we have. Look, I think what's clear, or becoming clear, I should say, tonight is that neither side, despite clear action by both sides, neither side appears to want this to last or escalate. CENTCOM has released a statement tonight that's CENTCOM's based out of Tampa. They are the part of the US military that is prosecuting this war, or has been. They say US forces intercepted unprovoked Iranian attacks and responded with self-defense strikes as US Navy guided missile destroyers transited the Strait of Hormuz to the Gulf of Oman May 7th. And they say that the Iranian forces launched multiple missiles, drones and small boats at 3 US naval vessels. No US assets, they say, were damaged, were struck. It goes on to say, CENTCOM does not seek escalation, but remains positioned and ready to protect American forces. Now, that's the American side of things. The Iranians have said that there have been American and other airstrikes from other aligned nations aligned to the Americans in a number of areas around the Strait of Hormuz. A number of naval assets hit, according to the Iranians. So clearly there has been firing by both sides on the other. But here's the Trump insert on that. Donald Trump has been speaking to ABC News over the course of the last few minutes, presumably a phone call that he has had with them. And he has described what has unfolded over the past few hours as a love tap. I mean, I think only President Trump could use a phrase like that to describe a military maneuver by the Americans. Trump tells ABC News the retaliatory strikes against Iran were a love tap. So there you go. I think what we can say from that and from what the Iranians have been saying in the last few minutes, which is that the situation on Iranian islands and coastal cities by the Strait of Hormuz is back to normal. I think what we can take from both sides is that there has been an exchange of fire, that there doesn't appear to have been any significant damage, if any, to American assets, and both sides clearly want this ceasefire to hold.
Yeah, extraordinary terminology there. Mark, much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, Donald Trump then speaking to the senior political correspondent for ABC News, saying it is just a love tap. When asked if it means the ceasefire is over, no, the ceasefire is going. It's in effect.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that ceasefire can be in effect when both sides are shooting at each other. But, and in fact, we have seen that over the course of this war, that have been these kind of temporary breaches of the ceasefire, and hopefully then things die down again. And it has felt like it over the course of the particular last 48 hours that there is a will on both sides to try to reach some kind of deal. And, I think we all got that sinking feeling when we heard of these strikes happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it appears from what CENTCOM said, a number of US vessels were trying to potentially probe the Strait of Hormuz. This is still very much where the war is focused on, not just militarily, but obviously economically, as we have heard so much about as well, Jack.
Yeah, and the Iranians have been incredibly adept at using that strait as an incredibly powerful bargaining tool, shutting off that key waterway. They know they can't defeat the Americans militarily, but economically they can make people all around the world feel incredible economic pain, and so they've used that to their advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Economic pain for our government. We saw government borrowing go up again this week. Makes it very difficult, does it not, for, a government on its back foot trying to make promises to people and not put up taxation again. Darrow mentioned that word.
And of course, one of the key things that Keir Starmer started the year saying is that this would be the year that the economy starts to turn a corner. And there were, again, two particular things that he mentioned. He mentioned rate cuts because people would start to see their mortgages go down because inflation was going down, and they would start to see cheaper energy bills because of some of the interventions that Rachel Reeves had taken in her budget. Two of those things most likely to be hit now by the Iran war. So the two measures of success now no longer likely to be.
Very interesting. OK, we'll keep an eye on that, certainly. CENTCOM has not put any pictures out. Sometimes they do. Certainly keeping an eye on that. But Donald Trump describing it as a love tap, and the ceasefire is still in effect. It is just coming up, a little bit early for the papers, but let's have a look anyway, shall we? So let's have a look at the front pages. The Times, first of all, reports Ed Miliband has told Sir Keir Starmer that he should set out a timeline for his departure from Number 10. The Express also reports on calls for the Prime Minister to go, this time from the former Shadow Cabinet colleague Barry Gardiner. The Eye writes that Angela Rayner met a key power broker in Sheffield to canvass support but left empty-handed, pointing out that the Tribune Group is very critical. There's the front of the Star. Andrew chased by man in a balaclava. They suggest man near Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's home at Sandringham. In the past hour, just to reiterate, that man has been charged with 2 counts of harassment. The Mirror with the same story. Andrew in Masked Man terror, they say. There is the Telegraph reporting on guilty verdicts against 2 men who spied for the Chinese government by exploiting Home Office work-from-home protocols to access information about Hong Kong dissidents. And that is also the main story for the Mail. Home Office immigration official exposed as a Chinese spy. The Guardian leads on a warning for schools to remove pictures of pupils' faces from their websites over fears that criminals are using them to create abuse imagery. The Financial Times reports Wall Street's rebound has been driven by the smallest number of stocks on record, prompting concerns over its stability. On the front of the Metro, a mother meets the transplant recipient who has given her late daughter's hand. And a car shop in Kent was tasked with spray painting Kim Kardashian's Met Gala look. That is on the front page of The Sun. Did they ship it to America then? They must have done.
I presume so, yeah.
Wow.
I think so. All the way from Kent.
Yeah.
The best of British, one of our finest exports.
Didn't want that broken, did you?
No, you did not.
You did not. Anyway, what should we talk about? She says, checking. Oh, right. OK, the inside page of The Eye. Who was it that left empty-handed? Angela Rayner's leadership hopes have suffered a setback at a secret meeting where she hoped for the backing of 100 key left-wing MPs, but left empty-handed. So who does the paper say she met?
She met Louise Haigh, the former Transport Secretary, who is now one of the co-leaders of the Tribune Group, this very powerful group of soft left MPs. Although, you should say there's a reasonably spread views, especially in that group, and especially about which leadership candidates they might back. But it has felt very much to us, I think, working in Westminster, speaking to a lot of those MPs over the course of the last few weeks, that group is kind of turning for Andy Burnham, that he is sort of sewing up a significant amount of support in that group rather than Angela Rayner. Angela Rayner probably feels slightly miffed by this because she's the one who's actually got a seat in Parliament and Andy Burnham doesn't. But I think, people's potential qualms about Angela Rayner, perhaps, her style I think, you know, maybe making people think that Andy Burnham would be a safer pair of hands to replace Keir Starmer.
So how febrile has the backroom politicking been amongst Labour MPs about how to coalesce and who to coalesce round and when to go? I mean, do you sense it all the time when you speak to them?
It's felt more febrile, I think, in the past few weeks. There was a period when, obviously, Anas Sarwar called for the Prime Minister to go, which it felt that any moment now the government could fall, and then Downing Street were actually incredibly successful in rallying the cabinet around and really snuffing out any sort of rebellion. And then from there on, it just seemed that Labour MPs were just a bit down in the dumps, a bit resigned to the fact that at some point it would happen. But it's always been this question of how rather than if the Prime Minister goes, and that leads all sorts of questions. You know, who goes over the top? Who is there to replace Keir Starmer waiting in the wings? All of them have their problems right now. I have to say, like, it does feel in the past week or so that things are building to some sort of crescendo, and that's obviously because of these elections.
Yes, and it's not just on personnel, it's on policy as well, which is, you know, effectively your story in The Sun, is it not? Labour's civil war on immigration. Well, you know, what is the concern then here?
Well, we know that after these set of elections, there are going to be members of the soft left of the Labour Party who are incredibly put out by Shabana Mahmood's tough crackdown on migration, who are going to try and get Keir Starmer to soften it. We've spoken to some of them who have already said that they're going to try and launch a push to water down the ILR reforms. Allies of Shabana Mahmood tonight making clear that she really wants to stick by them, pointing to polls showing that actually the public across all voter groups want controlled migration, they want border control. But also that actually, in terms of a strategy point for Labour, even if you don't want to fight on immigration, just neutralising it as an issue at the next election would actually be beneficial for Labour, because then they can fight on the sort of the comfortable turf which they like, you know, public services, the economy, the NHS, the things which are the bread and butter of the Labour Party, shoot Nigel Farage's fox so that he doesn't have the immigration issue to go to the country with. So that's the point that Shabana Mahmood is making, but it feels like it's going to be a bit of a fight in the next few weeks.
Yes, just some more lines from Donald Trump, in fact, on what happened in the Strait of Hormuz. He has just had to say 3 world-class American destroyers just transited very successfully out of the Strait of Hormuz under fire. He said there was no damage done to the 3 destroyers, but great damage done to Iranian attackers. In fact, oh my goodness, it's a very long Truth Social post. I'm not sure I've got time to read all of it. But the point he's trying to show, obviously, once again, is that he can get in and out of the Strait of Hormuz, which is, you know, ostensibly closed by both sides. Trump on the outside and the Iranians with the bit that matches up to the UAE and Oman.
Yeah, and he's obviously trying to secure at the moment this UN resolution about reopening the strait, one that he's concerned, you know, China might veto, could be embarrassing for him with his upcoming China trip.
You just get the sense that he's a bit frustrated and probably a little bit embarrassed that Iran are still controlling the strait. I mean, he's told the American people that he has decimated Iran's navy, he's decimated their military, but yet clearly what they're seeing with their own eyes is Iran still having a stranglehold on this strait.
He said there was great damage done to the Iranian attackers. They were completely destroyed, along with numerous small boats, which are being used to take the place of their fully decapitated navy. These boats went to the bottom of the sea quickly and efficiently. Missiles were shot at our destroyers and were easily knocked down. Likewise, drones came and were incinerated while in the air. They dropped ever so beautifully down to the ocean, very much like a butterfly dropping to its grave. A normal country would have allowed these destroyers to pass. No, it's well, this is from the Love Tap earlier as well. A normal country would have allowed these destroyers to pass, but Iran is not a normal country. They are led by lunatics, and if it had the chance to use a nuclear weapon, they would do it without question, but they'll never have that opportunity. And just like we knocked them out again today, we'll knock them out a lot harder and a lot more violently in the future if they don't get their deals signed fast, etc., etc. There we are. OK, a skirmish in the Strait of Hormuz, but US ships have passed through, as Donald Trump says, beautifully. There we go. Lots more still to come. I wonder if we take a break now and come back with more paper. Should we do that? OK, see you in a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter.
I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
So we are taking a look at what is making tomorrow's newspapers. Not long, just reminding people that our election results show start. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the Daily Telegraph. Another big story today, which is China exploited working from home to spy on the UK. This, of course, after two people were convicted of spying for China, trying to track, Jessica, Hong Kong dissidents.
Absolutely extraordinary story that this Border Force official accessed this extremely sensitive data as part of a kind of shadow policing operation that was taking place on British soil. And, I mean, the Telegraph said got the working from home angle, which is quite...
Telegraph bingo, isn't it?
Telegraph bingo. Truly, seriously, this is an extraordinary work by the security services to have identified and got these convictions.
Yeah, amazing. Jack, your reading of it.
Yeah, and the fact that clearly Keir Starmer went to China a few months ago, and he's walking this tightrope about he needs to cozy up to them because he wants their trade, he wants cooperation, he wants influence with China, but at the same time finds himself so often having to condemn them and criticise them because of their actions, be it spying in the UK, be it about their treatment of Uyghurs, be it about their treatment and their handling of the Ukraine war, sanctioning MPs and the rest of it. I think that what this is, going to spark calls for, which Keir Starmer has resisted so far, is more placing China in this higher tier of the foreign influence register, which lots of people have been calling for. All we have currently is Russia and Iran in that tier. At the moment, it's not regarded as a threat by the British state, the Chinese. I think the more these stories come to the fore, we've seen lots of them in the past few months, that pressure's only going to grow.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's go to the Times. This is something else that people have been calling for, which is for members of the Muslim community to step up and condemn anti-Semitism, which seems to have happened if you with reading this article.
Yeah, and quite a moving story about how this prominent group of Muslims have said that that Muslims in general should do more to condemn anti-Semitism in the UK, and not to allow what's going on in the Middle East to kind of cause divisions between the two groups. It was interesting after there was a firebomb attack on a synagogue in Finchley. One of the first things that the local Muslim group did was kind of come over and offer solidarity. That was something that Sarah Sackman, the minister and the MP there, was telling me about. And in fact, the synagogue had done the same for the mosque when they had a few years ago experienced a similar kind of vandalism. So, between communities, these are taking place. And I think what people want to see is the demonstration of this on a national level, that there can be solidarity between two groups. They don't have to be pitted against each other.
OK, more peace offerings, if I can call it that, which is Marco Rubio off to the Vatican today for what people have described as a very long meeting, but heads of state don't even get this long. It's in the double page of the World section. We've got pictures of it as well, actually. In fact, we've chopped off the picture. Down the bottom it says olive branch extended at the Vatican. The point being that Marco Rubio is a Catholic. We know J.D. Vance is a Catholic as well. We know that Donald Trump has been unbelievably critical of the Pope because of his moves towards peace. And he's an American Pope, and they're speaking English, which is why the meeting was strangely so long, because they don't have to translate. So it was longer than even anticipated.
And it's gone down incredibly badly, Donald Trump's attacks on the Pope, not least because many of his MAGA faithful will be very evangelical, many of them will be Catholic. And, for both Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and J.D. Vance, the Vice President, both of them are seen as heirs to Trump. And most people in the Republican Party see it as basically a fistfight between the two of them about who is going to emerge as Trump's successor. And so going over there to show that actually you are building ties with the Pope where Trump is burning them, probably not an unhelpful thing for Marco Rubio to doing if he wants a second stab at the presidency.
Yeah. Rubio gave the Pope a small crystal paperweight. I heard it was in the shape of a tennis ball. That was not a tennis ball shape, was it? But anyway, clearly not. What to get someone who has everything, he said. Previous popes have literally wanted no possessions at all. So maybe they shouldn't be doing the gifting. No, that's the other gift, actually, I think. Yes.
Probably got an awful lot of paperwork.
There genuinely is, isn't there? Yes. No, it was based. What shape was it? American football shape. Anyway, should we talk about David Attenborough and 100 years of him? So David at 100, a life in pictures. What an extraordinary career.
Yeah, and amazing. And it's great to see him on the front page of those papers. And still, so prolific. There are so many. Documentaries still that we hear him doing the voiceover of, clearly has still very, very much able to kind of contribute in the way that he's always wanted to his field.
And a wasp has been, is that the wasp that's been named after him? That is the wasp named after David Attenborough. It is a new species of wasp which has been named in honour of Sir David Attenborough's 100th birthday. It is the latest species to be named after the beloved environmentalist.
I think there are 50 species that are named after him now.
Would you want to be named after a wasp?
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, by common consent, the insect which is the most annoying.
It's great. No, it's brilliant.
I don't think so. David Attenborough, he's sort of calm. His sort of voice is like caramel in your ear. You could drift off to sleep to it. Whereas a wasp is just buzzing in your ear the whole time.
No. It's all cool. Yes, happy birthday to him, obviously.
Happy
That's
birthday,
been a marathon
David.
session. Really appreciate it. Jack, Jessica, I know you're both working hard and early tomorrow, so much appreciated. Thank you. Now, we've got the sport next. A night to remember in Europe for both Aston Villa and Crystal Palace, and a certain prince was really happy. See you in a moment.
A lot of local and national seats are up for grabs.
Waiting for the people's vote on who will sit in them.
It's your chance to have a say
on who has a seat at the table.
Follow Sky News as we give you the best seats in the House.
From voting
to the results,
the analysis,
and what comes next.
Join us for Vote 26.
Get the full story fast on Sky News.
Sky News has been given exclusive data showing every Palestinian who has been killed in Gaza since the war began. Our analysis of this pattern in the killings suggests that entire families were wiped out in their homes or shelters. The data and forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparent journalism from Sky News. We located footage of the aid drop to a tent camp in central Gaza.
These airdrops are falling in extremely populated areas.
We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite imagery, social media, and other open source information. Now, this is just one of the strikes and incidents we've been able to geolocate across Gaza. Sky News has found Nazi speeches and marching music have been used as background sound on tens of thousands of TikTok videos as far-right groups try and spread their message. Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. There's no evidence yet of foul play at Heathrow. It shows weaknesses that enemies could take advantage of. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America. Supporters say it saves lives and projects American power and influence.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in.
A lot of people are going to be, why are you making Nazi references? Right. Well, why wouldn't I?
Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
It's a racial association. I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist
My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Well, we've got sport coming up. A certain Prince William extremely excited about one of the results. But let's just remind you of our special programme coming up in just under 10 minutes' time. It is, of course, a big night of counting in the local councils for England. We know that Scotland is counting tomorrow. Wales is counting tomorrow as well. But overnight, 46 English councils are counting. It makes up 1,200 seats. That is a quarter of the total of just over 5,000 seats that are up for grabs. That is more than triple last year. So this really is a big test of the fortunes of all the parties. We are expecting, obviously, a very difficult night for the Labour Party. They are defending more than half of the available seats, mostly in urban areas. Keir Starmer, as you can see, voting earlier. What happens in London will be absolutely critical to them. But some of their heartlands really are being nibbled at from all sides. 12 authorities overnight have full council elections where change in overall control is more likely. Potentially, Labour-controlled Halton is expected as one of the first results, then Conservative Broxbourne, both with majorities which cannot be overturned with the number of seats up for grabs. But we know that Exeter might be the first council that Labour loses. Only 3 defeats needed there. Other vulnerable Labour-run councils, Hartlepool, Redditch, Reading, Southampton, Thameside, where Gorton and Denton, that parliamentary seat overlaps. We've got pictures of that area. There is Thameside. We have got correspondence for you. We've got Jonathan Samuels, we've got Sam Coates, and, of course, a panel of politicians who will bring you the very latest. Let's get the sport. Here's Mike.
James, can you do a big clap in front of your face?
Perfect.
OK, mate, in your own time.
One word to describe James Milner.
Legend. Unique. Consistent.
Dedicated.
Intense. Brilliant.
He just loves to win.
I think he's everything you'd want to be in a footballer.
The Premier League loves James Milner.
Hi James, congratulations on breaking the all-time Premier League appearance record and how hard it is to keep going. You've done phenomenal, so well done.
To be appreciated by your teammates and appreciate what you give, that's pretty special.
England's future looks healthy, and here at Leeds United's training ground, they reckon they're once again grooming tomorrow's World Cup stars.
The board now are realising that you've got to have your money in your academy, you've got to believe in it, because the spiralling costs of everything within the game, I think you've got to try and bring people through that you've blooded yourself.
Yeah, it was an amazing time being in the academy, and then you're seeing the likes of those guys come through. I remember Alan Smith scoring his first touch at Anfield. He was my hero. From being really young and going with my family, and as a Leeds fan, you know, it was a dream really being at the club and being in the academy of a team you supported.
James had a mentality that you would associate with an older, good professional.
Lucky enough to sign the old YTS back then at Leeds, and then we ended up sharing a room together. It was only Phil's and Orsi's, and then I think it was on the old PlayStation. We had a snooker game and we were obviously competitive and trying to get 147.
It was a training session basically, and this young lad got called in, and straight away you're all having a look at him, you know, what's he like, whose team's he going to be on. I would say 10 minutes into him coming over from, I think it might have been under 12s then, how old was he? He's only like 16, wasn't he? He did this one thing straight away and everyone straight away went, oh, who's this lad here?
Young James Milner's only 16.
Didn't think I was going to get on, and to be fair, Terry gave me the nod to go on. Lee Bowyer passed me a ball with my back to goal, and I tried to pass it back and passed it to Paolo Di Canio, and he put it over the bar, thank God. And just remember Bo afterwards asking, did I ever bet on 4-all? I can't remember too much about being nervous playing against other Premier League players, because for me Leeds were an amazing team, and seeing Wayne Rooney doing what he was doing at that time, that obviously showed you again it was possible and someone else was doing it, and made you even more eager to go and train really well and take your chance when you got it on the pitch.
Goal for Leeds, and it's the youngster James Milner.
He's travelled a long way to get in the 6-yard box to finish that off, and I think that is typical of the type of player he is.
No, we're there to put the boots out. We're there to pick.
Well, Jonathan Samuel's standing by, Sam Coates too, to bring you a special programme on the counting currently underway. Vote 2026 is next.
We're trying to see as much as we can. We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News. People are directly protesting. The whole neighbourhood has rallied around her. It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?